Following our victory and capturing the battery at San Juan, it was necessary to remain anchored at the river mouth for several days. Watering and provisioning needed to be done. The transports, escorted by HMS Ceres, had departed, bound for Jamaica, carrying away all the prisoners we had taken, but leaving behind the doctor of the Galga. He was an American from the colonies and had remained behind to assist in an operation to save the life of Captain Wilcox. I would have seen him put aboard with the other prisoners, but he was determined to do his duty as a doctor, and argued indefatigably to assist in the operation. "Please, sir, do not think of me as your enemy. My duty and my loyalty are to the preservation of life. Certainly not to any flag, or king, general or politician. I was only aboard that ship temporarily as acting doctor. It's my way of paying the captain for transportation to South America. Let me assist in saving your captain's life, and if the good doctor here feels I am doing anything that may harm the man, you can order me be removed. And you, sir, well, you get to have me shot." Or words to that effect, really. You'll have to excuse that part of my storytelling. I'm afraid I'm no good at impersonating our former friends from the colonies. Anyway, it was at this point that Dr. Forster rejoined the fray. "Yes, now see here, Lieutenant. I have taken a jolly good long look at the wounded Spanish prisoners treated by Dr. Brown, and I can honestly say that some of those men may not have survived under my care, nor the care of several other doctors that I know. The man is as good a physician as I have ever seen. He may in fact be the difference between life and death for Captain Wilcox." And so the argument waged back and forth for several more minutes, until at last I relented. Happy to say that later that day it was noted in the ship's log that assistance rendered by Dr. Samuel Brown was instrumental to the success of the operation that saved the life of Captain Wilcox. Several days later, we set sail bound for the rendezvous. Happy to say the captain's condition continued to improve until at last he felt strong enough to take nominal command of his ship, albeit from the comfort of his quarters. At last we reached the rendezvous, news of our victory having preceded us, courtesy of HMS Ceres. There we were met by the brig Ferret, a pair of transports and a schooner that was carrying private letters from home, orders and dispatches. I received a pair of letters from my betrothed, and I also received new orders. I was to repair aboard the sloop of war HMS Galga, the ship I had so recently captured from the Spanish. She was to keep the same name in Royal Navy service, and I was appointed captain. Don't misunderstand this. I wasn't being promoted in rank, I remained a lieutenant. After all, there are several midshipmen in the Navy who are captains in their own right, aboard schooners, cutters, other small ships and detachments, and so on. But I was elated. Finally my own command, my own ship, and I wasted no time in transferring aboard. The two transports carried the majority of my crew. The remainder were made up from transferees from aboard HMS Richmond. She was bound for Jamaica, and some much needed time in dockyard hands, and I quickly said my goodbyes to the captain and the rest of the crew. And so I had a full crew complement, aside from a doctor and a surgeon's mate. Fortunately, Dr. Brown remained unemployed at this time and graciously accepted my invitation to come aboard Galga as my doctor. He was technically a prisoner of war, but he had proven himself a very worthy gentleman. Besides, I needed a ship's doctor. And so everything shipshape and all my personal equipment stowed away in my new quarters aboard the Galga, we set sail in consort with HMS Ferret. Our orders were quite a pressing matter and had to be dealt with quickly. We were to track down, destroy or capture the Spanish brig San Juan Bautista, who had been operating in the area, preying on British shipping. She had recently captured the British transport Walpole, carrying vital supplies to one of our island garrisons, and it had been that which had precipitated my orders. She wasn't too difficult to track down. We passed a pair of cutters who had been shadowing the San Juan Bautista for several days. They reported that he had been joined by another brig, and that they appeared to be escorting the Walpole to a small islet garrisoned by a Spanish camp and a shore battery. And so we made haste to catch them before they could reach the safety of those guns, and fortunately for us, we had the advantage of the weather gauge. The Spanish ships were just about making headway, and so we fell upon them from windward. The San Juan Bautista's consort was in the lead, and I was content to let that vessel go, for she was not in my orders at all. And so the San Juan Bautista came under the combined attentions of the Galga and the Ferret. The Ferret's captain and I had already agreed upon a plan. HMS Galga would concentrate on battling the San Juan Bautista, whereas HMS Ferret would concentrate on chasing down and capturing the Walpole. The Ferret was only recently out of dockyard hands, and was therefore the slightly faster of our two vessels. The Ferret's captain was a very agreeable chap called James Ellis, a junior lieutenant only recently promoted, and that therefore gave me the seniority and put me in charge of our small flotilla. As we closed with the enemy, the leading Spanish ship came about, I believe in a bid to close up with the Walpole, for it was quite clear that she was one of our main objectives, and I ordered the helmsman to turn away from the San Juan Bautista, for that ship had got far below decks and we could see the smoke coming out through the hatchways. But her crew very efficiently doused the flames, and she drew alongside us, and we exchanged a good volley of gunfire. I took a quick glance back at HMS Ferret, which by now was moving to intercept the Walpole. All I had to do now was ensure that the two Spanish brigs didn't interfere with the boarding action that would surely follow. Rather curiously, both Spanish brigs sailed right past their treasure. Perhaps they had already decided to abandon their ill-gotten gains and beat a hasty retreat. Perhaps they intended to get under the guns of the nearby battery. At last, HMS Ferret closed with the Walpole and opened the broadside on that ship. Of course, we were firing on our own vessel, technically speaking, but it was necessary in order to pave the way for a boarding action. Even from my quarterdeck, I could see the men throwing over the grappling hooks that would pull the two ships close together and allow the men from the Ferret to jump across in order to take the ship by storm. One final broadside crashed out from HMS Ferret, as much of the crew gathered, waiting to spring across to initiate the boarding action. We, aboard HMS Galga, continued to engage the two Spanish warships. Curiously, one of them continued on its way, but the San Juan Bautista turned towards HMS Ferret, no doubt intent on stopping us from capturing the Walpole. We would ram that ship if we had to, in order to stop her from interfering with Ferret's boarding action. And indeed, our ship did come into light contact with the enemy. HMS Ferret's starboard gunners poured forth a devastating close-range fusillade from their guns straight through the bow of the San Juan Bautista. Her crew were in a terrible state, shocked and mostly wounded, and foolishly turning broadside on to HMS Ferret, allowing us to fire through her stern, raking the ship in a devastating fashion. At last, HMS Ferret's crew, led by her captain, sprung across the short gap over onto the Walpole and began to easily overwhelm the Spanish prize crew. In the meantime, the Ferret's starboard guns continued to pour forth fire into the San Juan Bautista. The Spanish prize crew aboard the Walpole very quickly struck their colours, and Captain Ellis very quickly appointed a small prize crew aboard her, sailing her away from the battle. And as her consort reached safety, the embattled San Juan Bautista once again fell under the combined attentions of the Galga and HMS Ferret, and it wasn't long before her mainmast went by the board. And to be quite honest with you, I had assumed at this point that the Spanish captain must surely strike his colours and surrender, for there was no way he could escape. But alas, he did not. Clearly a stubborn man, perhaps all his recent successes in preying upon British shipping had made him somewhat arrogant. There was no shame in striking at this point. He had clearly lost the battle, and his duty must surely fall to saving his men's lives. But even after carrying away his foremast, he still refused to surrender, until at last the sea swallowed his ship, and what remained of his crew rowed across in small boats to surrender. Thank you ever so much for watching part 2 of Memoirs at Sea. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope you enjoyed part 1. If you haven't seen it, I strongly suggest you do so.
if you have any ideas or pointers or advice or anything like that you feel may help enhance the story or the gameplay or the editing or whatever, please do let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you do like and want to subscribe, of course. Part 3 should be along shortly, hopefully, and thank you once again for watching. Cheerio.